Pandami Bande and good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's lesson 11 on 24 Sense Sphere Beautiful Consciousness. I'm Janice Ong. I'm the meeting co-host today. May we invite Bante to start the teaching, please? Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.
Good morning, everyone. Let's start our today's study, reciting Namo Tassa to pay homage to the Buddha 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Welcome back to Abhidhamma class. Today we are going to study about the sense pure beautiful consciousness as our 11th lesson. So we have already studied sense pure consciousness. There are 3 types of sense pure consciousness. The first one is unwholesome consciousness, and the second is rootless consciousness. So this is the part of sense pure consciousness. So here you see in the title, the word beautiful is inserted. So among the sense pure consciousness, altogether 54, only these 24 are beautiful, and the others 30 are non-beautiful. So first of all, we have to understand today we are going to study sense pure beautiful consciousness. They are 24 in number. Okay, so this slide is from lesson 4. In lesson 4, I have already shared about these slides and this classification of consciousness. This classification of consciousness is 1, Kama Vachara, 2nd, the Rupa Vachara, and the 3rd, Arupa Vachara, and the last one, Lokuttara Citta. We divide it into 4. Okay, so in lesson 4, we already discussed about the types of the consciousness according to the realms. So former 3s depends on the realms, respective realms, Kama Vachara, so they're related to the Kama Vachara realms, and Rupa Vachara related to the Rupa Vachara realm, and Arupa Vachara related to the Arupa Vachara realms, formalized jhana. Okay, so referring to these slides, we will continue our study to finalize the Kama Vachara Citta in this lesson 11. So here, as mentioned in this slide, the consciousness that have their domain in the sensuous plane of existence, that is called Kama Vachara. But some of them can arise in other plane as well. It means some of the Kama Vachara Citta can arise in Rupa Vachara realm and Arupa Vachara realms too. Today we're going to study the last part of Kama Vachara Citta, which is called the sensual, sense pure, beautiful consciousness. Okay, this is much more easier than the Ahituka, this one. And this is divided into 3. The first one is wholesome. So sense pure, wholesome consciousness. And the second group is resultants. So kusala, wholesome, and vipaka, resultants. So resultants of wholesome. Then the functional. So as I mentioned in previous lesson, functional is merely action. it cannot produce any result. That is called functional kiriya. It is mentioned in the Abhidhamma Chitta as well. So let's see the enumeration first to count the 8 consciousness of wholesome, sensual, pure wholesome consciousness. But this is quite easy. Only two class according to the feeling. So as we have counted this in Akusala and Ahituka, the consciousness accompanied by join is called Somanasa Sahagata in Pali, and the consciousness accompanied by equanimity, a neutral feeling, is called Ubekha Sahagata. So in the group of sense pure wholesome consciousness, there are 4 Somanasa Sahagata and 4 Ubekha Sahagata. In this way, they are 8 in number, 8 wholesome consciousness. And only the classification according to the feeling cannot be identified, the precise consciousness. So we need to continue another identification. That is Jnana Sampayutta and Jnana Vipayutta. Jnana Sampayutta is associated with knowledge. Jnana is knowledge. So some consciousness are associated with knowledge. They are called Jnana Sampayutta, and some consciousness are dissociated from knowledge. They are not associated with Jnana, knowledge. So they are called Jnana Vipayutta. So in this way, in this principle of classification, there are 2 types. One type is associated with Jnana, knowledge, and the other class is dissociated from knowledge. So in this way, we can count 4 are associated with knowledge and 4 are dissociated from knowledge. But some Somanasa Sahagata are associated with knowledge, and some Somanasa Sahagata are dissociated from knowledge. So in this way, we can get more precise consciousness. But although we identify in this way, still the same consciousness can be found in the enumeration. So Somanasa Sahagata Jnana Sampayutta, second also Somanasa Sahagata Jnana Sampayutta. In this way, 2 are identical. So we need to identify by the others, that is asankharika and sasankharika, unprompt and prompt. So this meaning already discussed in the Akusala Chitta. So encouragement by force, by any force, it is called the sasankharika. If there is no encouragement of no force inside or outside, that is called asankharika, unprompt. So if we identify in this way by 3 principles of identification, we get the precise consciousness of the wholesome, sense pure wholesome consciousness. The first one is Somanasa Sahagata, Jnana Sampayutta, Asankharika. In English, the first types of consciousness is accompanied by join, associated with knowledge, and unprompt. And this first types of consciousness is different from second types in case of prompt and unprompt, because the second one is prompt, sasankharika. In this way, we get the different types of wholesome consciousness, 8 in number. So we can say there are sense pure wholesome consciousness, 8 sense pure wholesome consciousness. They are not the same each other. So in the same way, in Ubekha Sahagata also different types. We get the the enumeration. So in this way, the enumeration can be counted. The sense sphere, result, and consciousness also the same as wholesome. So there are 8 sense sphere resulting consciousness. And also there are 8 sense sphere functional consciousness. The way of counting is the same. So altogether 24 sense sphere beautiful consciousness are counted. And let's see what is the difference, the first group and second group. First group is wholesome, and it can produce, as we have discussed, the nature of the wholesome kusala. It can produce the result, the karmically active. It is a kind of karmically active. This is called the wholesome. That wholesome can produce the result. So we get the group of result and consciousness that are produced by wholesome. So they are also Somnasa Sahagata, Jnana Samyutta, Asankharika, and up to the 8 in number. So the classification is the same as wholesome because they are produced by wholesome. The cause and effect, cause and the condition and results are same. So for the third group, the functional consciousness, the classification same as wholesome, so they are also same. But the only difference is they cannot produce any results. It is merely functional. It is just doing, arising and vanishing, or appear and disappear. So they cannot produce any results. That is the difference between wholesome and functional. Okay, so in this slide, just showing the enumeration, it is quite easier than the previous types of consciousness, unwholesome and rootless. Here, in this case, the rootless consciousness is quite complicated. If you can understand the rootless consciousness, the other types of consciousness are quite easier. Okay, so let's continue. That's why they are called sense sphere consciousness. The consciousness that have their proper domain. So here, proper domain to arise, the place to arise in the sensual plane existence. Their proper domain is sensuous plane existence. When we studied about the plane of existence, the 31 plane of existence, Okasa Loka, we got already the 11 sensual planes. So they are four of awful states, human realms, and 6 sensuous heavens, Deva Loka, the place of Deva. Altogether 11. So 24 consciousness usually arise in 11 sensual planes. That's why they are called sensuous beautiful consciousness. Okay, then here the karmically active of any particular sphere. Karmically active. Karmically active refers to the chitta of wholesome and unwholesome because they have the karmic potency. Wholesome will produce good results, unwholesome will produce bad results. That's why they are called, wholesome and unwholesome are called karmically active. But here in this case, because of this is the beautiful consciousness, only the wholesome consciousness can be found in the 24 sense sphere beautiful consciousness. So they produce and they generate the karma, which can produce the rebirth into corresponding plane of existence. So this sensual sense sphere consciousness, wholesome sense sphere consciousness has the generate the karma to produce the rebirth into the sensuous plane. It means when we study the first group, when we study the sense pure, beautiful consciousness, the first group is wholesome. That wholesome consciousness have the karmic potency that is called karma. That karma produce rebirth into sense pure realms. So we as a sensual sensual beings, we had done the wholesome consciousness in the past. Due to that wholesome karma, we were born as a sensuous being. So they produce. Here, it means if they succeed in gaining the opportunity to generate. So although we had done a lot of karma in the past, good and bad, we are born as a human being. So we can understand the wholesome karma get the opportunity to generate. It is result as rebirth, our rebirth. But for some sensual beings like an animal and hungry ghosts, they had done the karma in the past, unwholesome karma. Their karma to produce their rebirth was the unwholesome. So we have to understand here. You can find the passage in the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma. The sentence is written in this way: if they succeed in gaining the opportunity. So we had done a wholesome, both wholesome and unwholesome in the past karma. But while they are searching for the opportunity to generate rebirth, some get only one, maybe we can say that one of these wholesome and unwholesome past karma get opportunity to generate rebirth, because one life, our life was generated by one karma. So this sentence is, if they succeed in gaining the opportunity to generate rebirth. So we can understand we have the karma in both sides, wholesome and unwholesome. They are trying to get the opportunity to generate the rebirth. So if the sensuous karmas, the karma for sensuous pure, gain the opportunity to generate rebirth, it produces the rebirth in the sensual planes, not in other planes. It means our sensual karma cannot generate the rebirth in the rupa vachara and arupa vachara. It can generate the rebirth only in the sense pure realms. Okay, so now we understand the wholesome consciousness, the sense pure, beautiful, sense pure, wholesome consciousness can generate the rebirth in sense pure realms, only in the sense pure realm. So everyone, those who are born in sense pure realms, are generated by the sense pure karma. Okay, so let's continue to understand the sense pure wholesome consciousness, which is the past group of the sense pure beautiful consciousness. So here's a wholesome. One, these 8 consciousness can be called as wholesome kusala, and they are accompanied by wholesome roots. So we have studied in previous lesson about the roots. There are 6 types of roots, and unwholesome roots are 3, and the beautiful roots are 3. In this way, there are 6 types of roots. Unwholesome roots are greed, hatred, and delusion. So the other wholesome and resulting functional roots are collectively called beautiful roots. So among the beautiful root, we can identify the wholesome roots because they associated with the wholesome consciousness. The wholesome roots are non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. So in other way, non-greed can be understood the generosity. So non-greed and generosity are the same. And non-hatred as loving kindness. And non-delusion as wisdom. So these are three wholesome roots. Some consciousness arise these three or one of the three wholesome roots can be called wholesome consciousness. So now we understand the consciousness, the nature of a consciousness is to aware the objects. There's no difference. Every consciousness aware the object. But we can identify the consciousness by roots. This is the way to identify the consciousness. So some consciousness accompanied by the unwholesome roots, they are called the unwholesome consciousness. Some consciousness accompanied by wholesome roots, they are called wholesome consciousness. So wholesome roots are non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. Okay, so the characteristic of wholesome consciousness. There are two characteristics of wholesome consciousness, but we can understand the consciousness as this is wholesome by seeing the characteristic. One part of the characteristic is anawaja. Anawaja means mentally healthy and morally blameless. Already mentioned that. And sukha vipaka, productive of pleasant result. So every wholesome consciousness have this characteristic of anawaja and sukha vipaka. They are mentally healthy, morally blameless, and productive of pleasant result. So for the sense pure wholesome consciousness, we can understand the consciousness that are accompanied by the wholesome roots. So the wholesome roots are non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. We can find in the associated mental factor. And they have the characteristic of mentally healthy and morally blameless, which is called anawaja in Pali. So when that consciousness arises, that mentally healthy. And they are not blamed. They are not worthy to blame by the wise, by the noble person. That is called anawaja. And when they produce the result, they produce pleasant result. That is sukha vipaka. And also, they produce the rebirth into beautiful, sensuous plane. We have already counted the beautiful sensual planes. Among the 11 sensual planes, the 4 opposite states are not beautiful, starting from the human realms and 6 deva realms. Altogether, 7 realms are called the beautiful sensual planes. So as a result of sensuous pure wholesome consciousness, we can be born in one of the 7 beautiful sensual planes, human realm and 6 deva realms. So in this way, we can understand what is this sense pure wholesome consciousness by seeing accompanying rules and the characteristic and the potency to produce the rebirth. So in this case, we can get the 2 types of wholesome resultant. In previous rootless consciousness, there was a group of consciousness. This is the second group, the wholesome resultant rootless consciousness. Ahetuka kusala vipaka citta in Pali. So that are also produced by the sincere wholesome consciousness. And the second types, they are exactly the same, wholesome resultant consciousness with beautiful roots. So in this case, two types of resultant consciousness are different. One is rootless and the other is with beautiful roots. So Sahetuka Kamawachara Vipaka Chitta. So we can understand since pure wholesome consciousness can produce 16 resultant consciousness. 8 are in rootless. 8 are in with beautiful roots. Here in 24 sense pure beautiful consciousness. Okay, so let's continue to the second group. Atta Mahavipaka or Sahetuka Kamawachara Vipaka Chittani. The sense pure resultant consciousness with roots. As the cause or the condition is the sincere wholesome consciousness. This one is called sincere resultants because these 8 consciousness are result of wholesome 8 sincere wholesome consciousness in the first group. But this types of consciousness with roots, with beautiful roots, not with wholesome roots. The beautiful roots has the wider range. It includes the wholesome roots and resultant roots and functional roots. 3 of them are called beautiful because they are accompanied by the beautiful roots. So they are beautiful in the way, are not blameworthy. Okay, so the rootless wholesome resultant and the rooted resultants are produced by the same 8 wholesome chitta, just I mentioned in the previous slide. The two set differ their qualities and function. So this is the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma, page number 49, you can find. They are different. The two groups are different in quality and in function. So you can remember, you may remember the function of the and rootless consciousness. They are seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting or knowing the touch or knowing the physical touching, like this. And some of them make the investigating or some of them make the receiving, like this. So the function of these these rootless consciousness and the function of the consciousness with roots are different. That's why they are identified into 2 groups. They are divided into 2 groups. So the quality also different because the quality of rootless consciousness are weaker than the quality of consciousness with roots. That's why the Bhikkhu Bodhi explained the difference in 2 ways, the quality and function. So there is one chapter in the Abhidhamma Sangaha to explain about the function of the consciousness. So we will discuss more about these functions in that session. Okay, so we can make the conclusion, the productive chitta and resultant chitta. So the productive of active chitta are wholesome and unwholesome. Here in this case, because this is the beautiful consciousness, we can find only wholesome. So karmically wholesome, active or productive chitta. These are 8 in number. We can call this consciousness as Mahavipaka or Kamawachara Kusala Chitta. Mahakusala or Kamawachara Kusala Chitta. The result produced by these wholesome consciousness can be found in two groups, and some are with roots the same as the wholesome, and some are rootless, ahituka. Then the last group of since pure beautiful consciousness is the group of functional consciousness. So they are called the Atta Mahakiriya or Sahituka Kamavachara Kriya Chittani. So what is the difference between the wholesome and Kriya? Kusala and Kriya, wholesome and functional. The wholesome consciousness arises in the process of wordlings and trainings. Wordling and trainings. Trainings are 7 in number, so wordlings are 4. Altogether, 11%. It can be found in the 11%. And the 8 consciousness called Kiriya, or the functional consciousness, arise only in the process of Arahat. The types of individual is Arahats. We can say that person Buddha, Pachika Buddha, and Arahat. Because the wordlings and trainings, Puthujjana and Sikha, they have the father becoming. They will be born in any realms as beings. That is why the consciousness, wholesome consciousness, can produce its result in that future becoming, future realms, future rebirth. But for the Buddha, Pachika Buddha, and Arahant, they have no more future becomings. They have no more life. That is why there's nothing to produce the result for the action. So the action of Buddha, Pachika Buddha, and Arahant are considered as beautiful, but they cannot produce any result in this life because they have no more future life. Then when they perform the good action, their action are without karmic potency. The karmic potency produce the result in any life, in future life. But the Buddha, Pachika Buddha, and Arahant, although they perform the good action, the preaching of the offering or something, and that good action are without the karmic potency, because they already unrooted the ignorance and cravings, which those can be the cause of becomings, the cause of life. So they have no more becomings because they don't have any more life. Their action cannot produce. Thus, it is called the functional, not wholesome. It is called functional. So the difference is the wholesome consciousness arises in the process of wording and training, and they have the future becoming. The functional consciousness arises in the process of Buddha, Pachika Buddha, and Arahant. Those are included under the individual of Arahats, and they don't have future becoming. So here in the lesson 5, I already shared this table. So the classification of Ukala, individual. So 4 Puthujjana and 8 noble person. Among the 8 noble person, only the top one is called Arahat, Arahata, the fruition of Arahat. So this is called Arahat, and the other 7 of noble person are called the trainees. So to remember the classification of individual, to identify which one, the wholesome consciousness arises in which person's mind, and functional consciousness arises in which person's mind. You have to look back this table. So only the Arahat mind, the functional consciousness arises. Then There are three principles to identify the sense pure beautiful consciousness into 24. So the first, the principle start from the by way of feeling, then by way of present or absence of knowledge, then by way of spontaneity or prompting. Okay, this is the normal classification according to the kind. So there are three classes: wholesome, resultant, and functional. Each of them can be identified by three principles. The wholesome consciousness is identified by way of feeling. At the time, some are with joyful feeling and some are with neutral feeling. So Somnasa Sahagata and Upekha Sahagata, as mentioned in the first slide. Then the second way of identification is Jnana Sambyuta and Jnana Vipyuta. We already mentioned that. And the third principle is Asankharika and Sasankharika. So if we classify the all 24 sense pure beautiful consciousness into group according to three principles, so we can get the 12 joyful feeling. The 12 consciousness are accompanied by joyful feeling, and the other 12 consciousness are accompanied by equanimity. So in this way, 24 sense pure beautiful consciousness are classified according to the feeling. And because the 8 wholesome consciousness, the half are somanasa and the half are the upekha sahagata. In the same way, resultant and functional. In this way, 12 are joyful and 12 are neutral. Then by way of present of absent or knowledge, so altogether 12 are jnana sampyuta, associated with jnana, and 12 are, the other 12 are jnana vipyuta, dissociated from knowledge. In the same way, according to prompting, the 12 are unprompt and 12 are prompt. So this is not so difficult to identify, but it is better to know how many consciousness are accompanied by which types of feeling, whether it is joyful or equanimity, and how many consciousness are associated with knowledge or dissociated from knowledge in this way. Because if we continue our Abhidhamma study into the mental factors or Chittasika, so Chittasika chapter, we will study about the associated mental factors with the respective consciousness. So which type of consciousness associated with how many mental factors and what types of mental factors we have to identify, find the reason. So better to keep in mind the classification of consciousness according to the classification in this way, according to the respective principle. Here, knowledge. But in case of Lobha Mula Chitta, if you trying to recall the classification of Lobha Mula Chitta, they associate the present is the present of round view or absent of round view. We have already enumerated in that way. That is the principle to enumerate the unwholesome consciousness. Here, the principle to enumerate the wholesome consciousness. That is why the mental factor or the beautiful mental factor or jnana. The jnana, the one jnana is translated as knowledge here. But it is the same as panya, jnana and panya. Panya is usually translated as wisdom. And also it is the same as amoha. So in the 6 roots, we already know the alobha, adosa, amoha. There, amoha, same as jnana. And panya. So three words, in this case, jnana, panya, and amoha. In English, knowledge, wisdom, and non-delusion are the same. So the presence of jnana and the absence of jnana make difference of the beautiful consciousness. While the presence of wrong view and the absence of wrong view make the difference of unwholesome consciousness. Okay, so the only thing we have to get back is the word sahituka. So here you see the word asahituka. And here in this case, in case of Kriya Chitta, the word ahituka is used in the name, even in the name. Here in translation also with roots. And if we go back, the Vipaka Chitta also, the word sahituka can be found and translation with roots. But in the Kusala Chitta, there is no sahituka. There is modifier, sahituka. What is the difference of the use of, regarding the use of the word sahituka? It is not used in Kusala, but it is used in Vipaka and Kriya, the classification of Vipaka and Kriya. So here we can see in other class. So here, wholesome consciousness is not modified by the word with roots or sahituka, but the other resultant and functional are modified by the word with roots or sahituka. But if you consider the sensual, the whole classification of sensual pure consciousness, three groups. One is unwholesome group, second is the rootless group, and this is the third one, sense pure beautiful group. So among these three groups, we can find the resultants and functional in other groups. In rootless group, there are the consciousness of resultants, but they are rootless. So in order to differentiate the resultant with roots from rootless resultants, the word sahituka is used. And also, you can find some functional consciousness in rootless group. In order to identify the functional consciousness with root, this group, from rootless functional consciousness, the word sahituka is used. But we could not find any wholesome consciousness in other group, unwholesome group and rootless group. There's no wholesome consciousness in rootless group. That's why for the wholesome consciousness, we don't need to modify by the word sahituka. So we don't need to say wholesome consciousness with roots, because there is no other consciousness of rootless wholesome. So this is the difference. This is the reason why the word sahituka is inserted in the name of vipaka and kriya, although it is not inserted in the case of wholesome consciousness. Okay, so I think this explain about the sense pure beautiful consciousness. So the enumeration facts, and then the different nature of wholesome, resultant, and functional. And the wholesome produce the two types of resultants, one group in rootless and the other group with root. Then the functional, the difference of wholesome and functional arising in the different individual. And according to three principles, we can classify 24 beautiful, sense pure beautiful consciousness into two groups, and Somnasa group, Ubeka group. And the other principle, the Jnana Sambuddha group and Jnana Vibhuddha group. And the other principle, unprompt, the Asankarika group and prompt Sasankarika group. In this way, we understand about the sense pure beautiful consciousness. Okay, I'm going to stop my teaching here and let's continue to the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Bhante, very much for your teaching today. May Bhante actually lead us in making aspirations and sharing of merits, please.
Okay, let's make aspiration and share our merits. Imina punya kamina
Imunya punya kamena
mami bala samagamo
Mave bala samagamo
sadam samagamo hodu
Satam samagama hotu
yawa nibbana patiya
Yawa nibana patiya
idami punyam asawakya vahang hodu
Idame punyam asawakayam waham hotu
idami punyam nibbana sapachayo hodu
Idame punyam nibana sa pachayo hotu
mama punya bhagam
Mama punya bhagam
Sabha Sadanam Bhajimi
Savasatanam bhajemi
Te Sabe
Te sabe
Me Samam
Me samam
Punya Bhagam Labandu
Punya bhagam labantu
Sadhu
Sadhu
Sadhu Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante, and everyone for your time and participation. Till we meet on next Sunday, may all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante.